shortly, I'm sure. Oh my god. Has anyone got an hour? It's like, we are going to be here for a very, very long time. It's 2 weeks, is it? Okay. Hi everyone, and welcome to another PvP episode of Star Trek Adversaries. Just a short one today, and one of the fun ones that happened across my stream. I am playing against an Intrepid class ship, which is one of the very few ships which I'm not sure whether I could say it could outgrind me, because I feel like the Miranda has much better sweepers than the Intrepid potentially does. The Intrepid has to rely on a lot more crew, so I think the Miranda's core cards allow it to catch up. But either way, it's a grindy as hell matchup. The reason I wanted to highlight this game is because I make a horrific early mistake in this game, and it would have been very easy to just really, throw the game away from this point. But I decided to stick with it, as Star Trek has some very good catch-up mechanics, and in fact my opponent was the one who ended up on the wrong end of the anger stick, so I hope that you guys enjoy. Oh, I thought that was the... Yeah, oh, that's such a horrible mistake. I thought that was the... I thought that it was the other one. I thought that it was the 3-4 with whatever. Yeah, I thought it was the Guardian. Completely misread it. We might have a chance because our opponent is basically playing what I think is probably the bad version of Intrepid, which is basically just finding every single card that says retreat on it and putting it into a deck. This is actually a rather important point when you're deck building in Star Trek Adversaries. When you're trying to build a deck around a theme such as retreat, it is very, very simple, especially if you've not got the legendaries, to just find anything that says retreat on it and put it in a deck. I've made sort of the same idea. But in fact, the way that this game is designed is so much more around efficiency, and in fact, stats on your ship still play a huge factor, and that's one of the reasons why I don't play things like the Intrepid class ship, the 1-2 for 3, which retreats a ship when it comes into play, because while it can be powerful, it's also potentially incredibly bad as well. 1-2 for 3 is awful. Yeah, I'm probably going to end up conceding this very soon, because that mistake on turn 3 was just really bad. While it's very easy when you do make an absolutely boneheaded mistake like the one that I made to allow yourself to let it carry you away and basically just decide that the game's not worth catching up on, you should also realise that a lot of the time this game, at least Star Trek Adversaries, has some very good catch-up mechanics, and in fact my opponent with this retreat strategy, what he's doing, he's not actually putting my life total under any pressure. So while he is up on cards because I've made such an idiotic manoeuvre, I'm still very much in this game at the moment, and as I mentioned at the start, my core cards are more powerful than his, and therefore I would expect to be able to take my opponent in this situation if the game goes mega long. I find that people tend to get really obsessed with modulated shields. It's like, got to ping it off, got to ping off the modulated shield. And sometimes that's correct, but... See, we're in the... The thing is, it's like my opponent's been way in the lead this game, like miles in the league, and because he's spending time dicking around, I've actually, excuse my language, I've actually got a chance to get back into this game now, where I really shouldn't have had any chance to get back into this game having made that mistake. And I managed to catch up on myself as part of the stream anyway. But yeah, that's exactly the point I was making earlier. My opponent's just made a load of really low power, low board impact shit. ships. So yes, he's got a large hand, but if I can survive the next couple of turns or so, I can definitely turn this around. My deck is extremely powerful. I haven't seen any of my legendaries so far in the top half of my deck, so therefore my deck is extremely strong at the moment, and I really would expect my deck to carry me through as long as I can survive. And with my opponent not putting me under any pressure, then I'm in a pretty good situation. Now, of course, that Tuvok's going to change a few things, but again, he's going to take a ship off the board, so I'm still not under life pressure here. And the longer this goes on, that's actually the ship I was expecting in the first place, which led to this horrible situation. As long as I can survive and keep myself going at this point, I should be okay, but we'll see. Unfortunately, I've drawn all my early game, which is a bit sucky. Hopefully I can draw some of my late game. Think that I'm in trouble here. Well, real trouble here. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty rough. Sadly, our opponent's drawn pretty much all the tools in the world, and we've drawn nothing but... Yeah, that play on turn 3 just wrecked me. And he seems to be able to draw his, like, nuking crew at will. It's like... Cube would be nice if I could get that. Ooh! Ooh! Give me that! Well, that's a decent start. Yeah, that can happen. I mean, he's still miles ahead in this game, but I do have a chance. It depends how bad he is. Basically, at this point, it depends how bad my opponent is at this point. If my opponent's really bad, I can win this game. If my opponent's good, I cannot win this game. That's a piece of candy, though. That was like the one card in my deck that I could draw where I probably wouldn't scoop. And it's at this point that my opponent decides that he or she has had enough and just hits the red X in the top corner and leaves this game to time out. So, you know, despite everything that went off, yes, my play was horrible initially, but my opponent, again, this is a bit of a showcase of not only, yes, the cube's immensely powerful, we already know this, it's also not just a show of the fact that I hung in, you know, you hang in there and everything's okay at a certain point. But, you know, it's also a bit of a showcase of the fact that just because you do make an error, that isn't enough for you to throw the towel in. And also in terms of deck building, which I think is a big point that does need expanding on, don't just put cards in your deck if they're not going to have an effect on the game. This doesn't mean, obviously, that you stick a load of late game stuff in your deck and don't take care of the early game. That's, in fact, it's the exact opposite, because I want stuff that in the early game that's going to affect the board and allow me to fight for board control. And too many cards I felt in my opponent's deck. He was way up on cards on me, or she was way up on cards. But unfortunately for my opponent, they had too many do-nothing cards that allowed me to get back into the game, and then this one cube appears to have taken over the game. Still, I'm going to deal with this appropriately. I want the Apollo emote, unless I've got... Oh, yes! Are you ready for this, guys? Since he's being salty?
You will worship me.
Yes, I can be extremely petty, but, you know, it's in the game, and I think that I'm fully within my rights to use it here. Now, my opponent does salt off again, but one thing that Star Trek Adversaries does have is that if you rope, or whatever you want to call it, what the Hearthstone equivalent is, if you do that for 3 turns in a row, then the game will automatically concede you. So it does waste, you know, sort of 5-6 minutes of time, but I suppose at least it doesn't keep going. I would like to see, if you skip your entire turn, you then only get 1 minute on the next turn, then 30 seconds or something along those lines. Still, anyway, that's a nice little short from PvP, guys, and I hope to produce a little bit more content on this in the future, and see you next time.